It's Patio Side Chats with Fernando Martinez from Chaparral Pavers with tips and advice on landscaping and gardening. Here's Fernando Martinez.
And welcome to another edition here of your Patio Side Chats. We are here and fired up and ready to go today. I got another great show lined up. We're going to talk about some nurseries today and plant materials and living here on the Central Coast and taking advantage of all the resources that we have here. And it's so fun to live here and work here. I absolutely love my job. I love being able to, use all the nurseries here on the Central Coast, the plant selections here. And so we're going to dive right into that. But first off, I want to tell you that we do have a guest today here in the studio with us. And it's my partner in crime, Mr. Jonathan Araya.
Good morning, good afternoon, good night. We came, we saw, we conquered.
Sweet dreams, in case I don't see you.
It's a pleasure to be here again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming in today and doing the show with me. And thanks for being part of Chaparral Pavers. We're proud and, really excited and stoked to have you on board. And for a while now, we're getting comfortable, hitting the groove.
We are.
So I wanted to talk about some experiences that we've had this week, and you personally with getting some work done at your house with some contractors.
Yeah, it's interesting how, being on the other end of the spectrum, where usually I'm the one, assessing people, helping them answer questions that they may have,
right.
And providing a service and a good service. It's actually helped me realize exactly what I want in a business, what I want in a company, and how I want them to help me, and what's important from the customer's perspective versus the installer.
I think as even being a human being in life and trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes is really difficult, and something you have to really kind of think about, and for me anyway, and bring it to my foresight while I'm there and trying to place myself in that customer's position and how would they want to be treated, or what would make a good contractor, to have that experience be reciprocal. And so when you get to be on the customer side and feel what it feels like for someone to come over and be that business and, help you at your house.
Exactly.
It gives you some insight.
Exactly. I feel craftsmen and artists are few in the construction industry nowadays. I think most people take it as a job and just, I'm going to walk off and I'm done. But I think to be a true craftsman is what I'm looking for, is those small details that really finalize a project and makes it look complete.
Yeah, and how they're going to work, how the job's going to go. That's one thing I love about this radio show and landscaping in general, is that everything that we're talking about on here crosses genre, so to speak. It doesn't matter what the trade is, because we're today we're going to talk about plants and picking out plant materials, and that is the product, and that's the service that, that gets provided. But it could easily you could just as easily be picking out tiles for a floor, or, wood, or, any kind of roofing materials.
Exactly.
Or if it's an interior designer, you could be picking up
windows,
fabrics,
doors, a general. And that's kind of the hard part, is, for me at least, is finding somebody that I feel confident that they're going to get my vision and put it to work. So
yeah, it's because no one's going to be an expert in all those different fields. And so you rely on people and finding that right person to do that job for you and help you out with your project. And especially when it comes to plantings and things, like a lot of people will hire a landscape architect and they'll have it all drawn out and, to scale. And then, normally they would put in the plant material, call out all the names of all the plants. And, and I wonder sometimes, how much does that really help the client, Because if I get in there and I'm like, oh, this is Rhaphilepis indica, Pittosporum Wheeler's dwarf, or it could, and some of these are just common plants, but when you think of those names, is that customer really going to know what the botanical names or what that plant looks like or what it does? So it can be kind of rigid in that way sometimes when you have a landscape plan and all the plants are already called out. And so I think, it's good to have a plan and an amount of plants and where they would go. And I mean, we live here on the Central Coast, so it's an amazing climate. We can grow plants from South Africa here, from Australia. The plants do really well here. From south of France, a lot of lavenders and those types of plants. We can cross over into the tropical range. So there's so many options for plants here that it's fun. And I like the designs to be open and flexible.
I agree. And sometimes it's harder to imagine on paper. At least for me it is. You may think, on paper it says every 2 feet or 3 feet. But then when you get out there and you're kind of designing this from the hip, you think, what'd be kind of nice? Maybe we spread it out a little bit more. And I agree. That's, I think, the hardest thing for me when I'm on a bid and they have plans already and, they want to stick to the plans. Usually we end up bidding the amount of plants that are on the plan.
Yeah,
and then we change a few things here and there. Usually it depends on the architect too, because the architect might be just flooding. One guy may think 120 plants, another guy may think 90 is enough. So
or 200. I've
exactly.
seen and they're drawing the circles there. They want all the circles touching each other on the plans. It does look better on paper, but out in the field, you start putting them all next to each other and like, oh my gosh, this is way too many plants. And so,
color, I think that's true, because on paper, when you're designing, you don't get the full spectrum of what that color is going to blend together and what how that end result is going to hit. You have all these plants called out, but until you see them in person right next to each other, then I really think you really grasp what it's going to look like.
Yeah, and it's not as though those plants couldn't work or wouldn't be awesome, and sometimes they're very specific. They might say, Salvia gregae, San Antonios. But when we get down to the nursery, there's a different type of Salvia gregae. Maybe it's hot lips, or, and you can change. I like to go by what's available, what looks really good right then. And because they had San Antonio, but they were small and young in the cans, and the hot lips were big and full grown. Me personally, I would rather, not go by the plans and get the healthier, bigger plant that's going to make a better impact. And I mean, the hummingbirds are going to go crazy on either one. And so, I mean, to me, that's letting it flow, not being so rigid as to what the plants are going to be or what they have to be, or certain, types of lavenders or whatever it is that you're going to have on there. But going to the nursery is huge. I've worked for other contractors and I've seen, other businesses operate this way, where they draw it all out. They have all the plant names called out. The customer is not involved. They show up with all the plant material and then they just install it. And I mean, that can work. And there are, I guess, I'm sure there's clients out there that don't want to be involved in the plant choices, or just, do what you know how to do. You're the professional. But to me, that's not where the fun is. It just doesn't, I think design isn't stagnant like that. It should flow. It should feel open. It should really just kind of like, oh my gosh, be exciting. When you go, there's nothing like going to the nursery and you thought in your mind, we're going to go down and we're going to get these pittosporums or whatever. And you get down there and they have these amazing leucadendrons or Melaleucas or that we didn't know about. I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that plant. And here they have these huge fives in full bloom. And it's just like, yes, do that.
It's a feeling.
I mean, yeah. And I actually prefer doing it. I almost like not having a plan. I've almost gotten anti-plan to a certain degree. We were like, okay, we were doing a job in Morro Bay, and we'd bid. It was only going to be 5 plants on there. And I thought, well, we'll get some succulents or something, because there was going to be no irrigation to this area. We're going to do rock. And I'm thinking, where can I get 5-gallon succulents? I wanted some big, because if they're going to water them a couple times with a hose and try to get them established. We needed something decent size, decent root ball. And I thought, okay, well, I called a couple nurseries because it was in Morro Bay, and I don't get to go up there very often. That's another thing I love about my job, is traveling around the coast and seeing these properties and working in these places. And so I called up Los Osos Valley Nursery, which I had never been there. And it's just a little retail nursery out on Los Osos Valley Road, way in Los Osos, almost down to the end of Los Osos Valley Road. And they said, yeah, we've got 5-gallon succulents, come on down, a few different varieties. I said, great. Well, we get there and the job completely changed. And it was like, hey, 5's not going to be enough. We need like 13 succulents now to go along the back and kind of help hide this wall. They had a couple succulents on the other side of the wall. And so I kind of said, okay, maybe we could tie these in with that. Drawing that out on paper, I wouldn't have seen the succulents behind the wall and really got inspired by that. And if I would have showed up with 5 plants, we would have planted 5 plants. But because of letting it flow and allowing it, the design to be, flexible and grow with as we're there, we went down to that nursery and I took the client with me, which is one thing I love to do. And we saw the most incredible 5-gallon succulents. There was tons of them.
Wow.
So we had such a great time picking out 13 of them. We stayed with odd numbers. We stayed in groupings, just like we always do, as you know. So if we saw 3 or something, we'd grab. It was jade plants, which I wouldn't normally think of like, jade is succulent because it's pretty common.
Yeah.
But she had a jade on the other side of the wall, as you remember, and we put 3 jades on the other side to tie in, and it would just look like it was maybe designed that way from the beginning. And then we found, some other aeoniums, and it was just like we did a grouping of 5 with 3 of something, 2 of another plant, another grouping of 3, and then we found these little. You remember chalk sticks?
I love chalk sticks.
One of my favorites too. They had it's a senecio, and they had a giant chalk sticks.
Wow.
I didn't even know that existed. And so it's like, that to me is what we're talking about on the show. By being open to that, I go down there and here's this, they only had 1, and it was this giant, chalk sticks, and they had 2 other ones that had that bluish gray kind of feel. So we did 2 of those and the 1 giant chalk sticks in the middle, and then we had this grouping of 3 and the blue grays, and then they actually had a variegated aloe plant again that I had not seen. I've seen variegated ones, but not like this one. It was really yellow and green, like striking.
Nice.
And they just had 1 of those. So put that in, and I mean, it's just, to me, that was just a really neat experience to be here on the Central Coast, go to a nursery we hadn't gone to before, go with whatever looked really good there, but yet it was still designed. We knew it was going to be succulents. We knew it was going to be 5 gallons. We knew where they were going to go. And I painted out. I use marking paint. We do that a lot on our jobs.
Yeah, and then also with this particular project, I remember there was no water on that side, correct? There was no irrigation, no drip,
have to go
nothing.
under a block wall and footing and everything.
So what is her plan exactly on watering those plants?
So it's a great question because being in Morro Bay, there's a lot of fog and a lot of mist, and so it doesn't really even require a whole lot of irrigation anyway. It's kind of like same with Pismo Beach. There's certain areas on the Central Coast that your climate is going to naturally not be like, like San Ynez, where it's, blaring hot. And so, we're all in this kind of drought-tolerant world now, and with a lot of drought-tolerant plants. Well, succulents they hold all their water in the foliage, and they can take in water through the surface. They have really fine roots on the surface, so they're really good at getting water and holding on to it. So they don't take a whole lot, but you do have to get them established. So the plan was to get decent-sized, already grown by the nursery size succulents that have a good, and I think everybody knows,
healthier, hardier. Yeah,
and a bigger root ball. Plant those, water them. And again, even the gal at the nursery there was really good help. She was saying, and she's absolutely right, is to deep water them, let them dry out, deep water them, let them dry out, and deep water them to encourage those roots to go down deep. Hit them with some little bit of fertilizer, maybe for a couple times. You can put in a slow release. I think it's really good for succulents like Osmocote or something like that. And that way, you kind of get them set and established. And I would say after a few months of watering, maybe once every couple weeks, heavy, and then letting it dry out in between, they'll root in and they won't require any water at all.
Awesome.
Maybe if it gets hot summers or something.
No, that's cool. And then, I mean, just the whole experience. I remember when me and you went to Ron's earlier this week too. And Ron's is a kind of what would you describe Ron's? I mean, it's kind of a nursery in the back, but the front has kind of like garden art. But just those succulents that we saw that they incorporated into like metal. Well, I mean, I can't even describe how. I mean, the letters. You remember the metal?
Yeah, and the letters.
They were like metal letters that had succulents in them. I mean, it was
Irish
just
moss.
It was just beautiful, and pots that have been cracked purposely to make it look like the succulents were falling out.
Yeah,
I mean that whole experience, the fragrances there, the lavender, all the other indoor plants that we usually don't see or deal with because they're indoor plants.
Right.
And I mean, I was surprised. I was taken back, and it's just beautiful to be able to be there and explore and look at these products that are here in our own backyard.
That's a good point, because there's a lot of garden art at nurseries and things that can soften walls and fences. And those letters were cool. They were big, giant metal letters, and they were thick and deep, and they had soil in them, and they had planted a lot of Irish moss. There was a lot of it was Irish moss, and then they had like little pockets of succulents coming out, and then they put them straight up against the wall, like vertical, like a living wall concept in a small scale, in this metal letter. And it's just like, how do you draw that in
exactly
on the landscape plan? You know, it's like
you can't.
You don't see it because you don't even know, is it going to be available next time you go in there? Probably not. And that's what's awesome about it too. You know, it's like you go up the coast or go to Cambria or something, or you know, and like I said, Morro Bay, Los Osos. When we head south, we get to go to like Los Olivos. There's a little nursery in there that Jay Wosty
Jay Wosty, Los Olivos. I love their garden art because it's kind of...
They have a lot of garden art.
Each place has kind of like their own specialty of items, I guess. And Jay Wosty for sure had a lot of metal, had a lot of wood.
Yeah.
I mean,
plaques and little sayings about... And just a lot of them had to do with the wine industry, and, you know, like have a glass of, you know, Pinot or little, I forget what the sayings were, little...
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
To remind us, you know, why we go out in the garden and to relax.
Espalier apple trees. I mean, some of these things that we don't see at standard nurseries, you can find at these kind of specialty garden art nurseries that just by chance or luck, they have it there, you know?
Yeah. So I think if you are going to be doing a landscaping project and you're going to be putting in plants and you want a little layout, and even if you draw something up, stay open. Just put X's and O's and, you know, little stars or whatever shapes to where the plants are going to go. Get an idea of the quantity that you want to do, and stay open. Go to multiple different nurseries before you make a decision and check them all out. There's little ones here in Orchid. You know, and even if you want to go to the box stores up and down, I've seen like Ace Hardwares. Sometimes will surprise me.
Ace has some good pottery and some good plants. Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's a lot of neat places, because some of those specialty shops that we're talking about could be kind of expensive, but you buy a few things there.
Exactly.
You don't have to buy you know. And so anyway, it's just ideas to get you up and running. Okay, so we'll be right back on the other side of the break.
You're listening to Patio Side Chats with Fernando Martinez from Chaparral Pavers on California's Central Coast. Here on 1240 AM and 99.5 FM, KSMA.
This show is brought to you by Airval Block. Concrete paving stones or pavers are not all created equal. Airval Block pavers are created from a dry mix of gravel, sand, cement, and color. With very little water used, they're super strong. They won't crack or fade. And to be an Airval Block paver, the gravel and sand come from right here on the Central Coast, supporting our local community. Airval Block is the only local manufacturer of concrete masonry products like pavers, mortarless retaining wall blocks. Airval Block products are high quality for peace of mind, and there are many colors to choose from. And if you're not sure which products you need or how to use them, you will always get expert advice from the staff at Airval Block. Products made on the Central Coast for the Central Coast. Visit their fully landscaped outdoor showroom to see the many ways you can use Airval Block products at number 1 Suburban Road in San Luis Obispo, or go online at airvalblock.com.
If you're thinking about installing a new paver patio or paver driveway, check out Chaparral Pavers online at ilovetocomehome.com. Serving the Central Coast since 2001, Chaparral Pavers will work with you to get it right and complete the job to your specifications, as customer service is king at Chaparral Pavers. Paver driveways are stylish and durable and guaranteed to never crack. If your old concrete driveway or entryway is a hazardous cracking mess, it's time to call Chaparral Pavers. Go to their website, ilovetocomehome.com. You'll find all the information you need. Check out photographs of past installations and reviews from Central Coast residents who have used Chaparral Pavers. And don't forget, all installations are guaranteed for the life of your home. So check out Chaparral Pavers online at ilovetocomehome.com. Chaparral Pavers, they'll make you love to come home. Now, back to Patio Side Chats with Fernando Martinez from Chaparral Pavers on KSMA.
And we're back. Okay, we are talking about going to the nursery, picking out plant materials, staying open to what's available and not necessarily what's drawn in on the plans and being rigid. Living here on the Central Coast, going and taking advantage of all the beautiful, awesome nurseries that we have up and down the Central Coast, and not getting to where you're thinking you have to buy everything at one nursery, and staying open to ideas and things when you're there at the nursery, whether it be garden art or succulents or new plants that you hadn't thought of, or old comebacks that have come back around and now they have different varieties or dwarf versions or variegated or whatever it is. It's so much fun, way more fun than staying true to some drawing that someone had come up with, or even if you did it yourself. And I do have my partner here with me, Jonathan Araya, partner in crime. So what's your feeling on all this? You know,
I feel a lot of the times when I'm dealing with clients and I'm trying to get a scope of what they want for their landscape, I think the biggest thing I hear is I want it to look natural. I want it to look like it's been here, not like it's been designed and it looks like, it's a commercial space, going to a Walmart or anything like that. I could think of one bit I was just on, and the client was talking and I agreed with him. I said, yeah, nature is messy. It's not organized. You have colors and, the greens, the reds, the oranges, and it's all coming together to create a tapestry of color and art outside. With this particular client, he wasn't sure which plants he wanted to go with, but he wanted pockets of color. He wanted pockets of broken cobbles and rocks, and that's, I think, a look that a lot of people are going for. He called it the Montecito look.
I agree. Nature doesn't plant 7-10 plants in a row, all the same color. And, when we go, and I really like when I think of dry creeks, for instance, I think of, okay, if I were to go down to a creek and see it.
Exactly.
Are all the cobbles in a straight line lined up on the sides? Exactly. Or is it wild, does it move in and out? That's not to say that you don't want any design to it at all, because of course you do, and we're going to indent the ground so that if water were flowing there, that it could actually be used and water would flow out. So the grading, but you do it in a way where it could look natural. We do 7-10 plants over here, but we mix them. We don't do all the same color. Even if they're the same plant, you can choose different colors of that and throw in a strange one, like I was talking about earlier about that aloe. We just threw one aloe in there.
Exactly.
Because that's how nature is, and that's how it grows.
And I think back to, how we bury the boulders partially.
Yeah.
And that's for that reason, to make it look like Mother Nature has taken a hold of it.
Yeah. Could be coming up out of the ground,
exactly.
On their own. That is good design.
And also, when you go back to some of the projects we've done 10 years ago or whatnot, I mean, it looks organized because it's been, manicured, but it's still not, it doesn't look industrial where you go to a Walmart parking lot and there's, 15 plants all in a row, the same variety.
And we did that because we do work off of plans, and we're forced to install these, so we're getting both sides of the coin on it. We did a job in Lompoc not too long ago for a commercial. It was more, they were like, what were they, condos?
Yeah.
And we put in exactly per plan what they said. They had a lot of these ground covers. I think it was strawberry. There was ornamental strawberry and Irish moss. And they wanted us to cut them up in squares like brownies, and we were planting them inside the rocks, on some cases in the middle, in between where people were going to walk.
Exactly.
There was no other plants. It was just that whole thing was supposed to be all moss. The other section was all ornamental strawberry. They had a little bit of variation in the front with just a few plants, 3 trees. All the trees were exactly the same tree. I think it was European white birch. It just looked sterile. It just didn't.
And 3 months later, when we came back to look at the project, the weeds were growing up. I mean, it just looked like a mess. It didn't look organized. It didn't look. You didn't have the pop of color. I mean, it wasn't our cup of tea, if you would, you know.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, that there's a place for that. There's, if you're doing formal gardens, or if you are putting in a grocery store, you know, I can understand, you know, the need for that. But for most of us, doing landscaping at our houses and homes and projects that are going to welcome us home and having us relaxing in our backyards and having that atmosphere in that space, to me, it should be an experience, and it should feel exciting and awesome and fun. And I know every time we walk by that aloe, when she comes back to her place there in Morro Bay, I remember when we found that, and it was the only one, you know.
Yeah, there's a story to it.
It's so much more special and inviting, and it really is amazing. And to design that way, and I'm not talking hodgepodge, buy one of this, one of that, one here at this nursery, one here at that nursery. You do have to have an overall plan of where things are going, keep quantities in mind, and placement of where they're gonna be put out. So thanks for coming in today, Jonathan. We appreciate your help. And thanks for tuning in out there and sharing your afternoon with us. And we will see you next week with another show. Find us on Facebook, Chaparral Pavers, and let us know if you have a question, and we'll get it on the air for you. See you next time.
This has been Patio Side Chats with Fernando Martinez from Chaparral Pavers. Go to ilovetoComeHome.com to find out more, or call 805-588-6917. And be sure and tune in next week at this same time for Patio Side Chats here on KSMA.